Alright, sports fans, we're here with another one. It's going to be a 2007 Toyota Tundra 4.7 liter V8 I-Force. It is leaking. Let me see here. Well, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. It's actually leaking. You can see right up underneath here there's some red science project, almost looks kind of like battery acid, so we know that it's leaking. The funny thing about this is in the diagnosing portion of it, we found that there was coolant actually running down the back from where the transmission bolts into the block. Now typically you would say it's leaking in the back or whatever, but we have been able to discern that it is leaking up in the front. It is filling up the valley underneath the intake, and then that coolant, once it gets to a certain level, is actually running overflow down the back of the block, because you do have a little bit of an angle on the motor how it sits in here. So couldn't find any videos on YouTube on how to pull the intake up off of here, so I'm gonna get started on that and I'm gonna drag y'all along for the ride. How about that? So here we go. There's the intake on. You can see the fuel rails here. Not sure whether or not those are gonna have to come off, come out as part of the retaining fasteners for the intake manifold gasket. So it's just gonna kind of be a slow process today, learning as we go, and we're gonna learn together. So I'm gonna start looking at some of this and I'll be right back. Alright, coming at you live from the floor. First thing we want to do here, see, I've got my pan. We're gonna want to take all the coolant that's left in here out of here, and that's gonna be this. It's gonna be found at the bottom of the radiator. You can see I'm at the bottom of the truck. So that pitcock drain plug, it is known by many names. It does the same. I'm gonna go ahead and use some pliers, just because the plastic, they can get stuck on there. Be real gentle when you're breaking that thing loose. You don't want it to snap off. You'll definitely have a harder time getting it out of there if it breaks. All right. Now I've got the radiator capped off right now. I do not have it open, and I'm going to show you all why. You can see that the flow is kind of minute. It's very subtle coming out of there. I'm going to go ahead and open the radiator cap for you here. Now, with that open, you can see the flow has become gushing. So you want to make sure you got a pretty good sized pan. You are going to get a little bit of splash out the sides. Make sure you're watching your eyes. Be very careful. You definitely don't want to get any coolant in your eyes. You notice I'm not wearing goggles. I'm a little bit hardcore like that. So that, and I have experience, so I know where to be when stuff starts flying. So yeah, once that's all drained, we're gonna go in here and start taking some hoses out. Get right back with y'all. Alright, I'm back here up underneath the car. Taking this clamp off right here. I'm gonna bust this lower radiator hose loose. I just want any residual water that may still be in there to work its way out of the radiator. My boss works really hard to keep these floors clean in here, so clean shop is a happy shop, you know what I'm saying? So once we bust this hose off here, we're gonna let it drain out a little bit more, and then everything after this point is pretty much gonna be on top, so bear with me. Alright, and we're back. Just want to go ahead and mention this right here. This thing right here is called a Topside Creeper. If you do own a pickup truck, and you are the type of guy who plans on doing all of your own work, I highly recommend a Topside Creeper. It saves you the time of letting air out of the tires to kind of lower the truck down, so you don't have to climb up on the front bumper every time you need to do some work. I use the Topside Creeper on just about every truck I work on, especially when it pertains to the top end of the motor. It allows you to just kind of comfortably hang over the top of the motor and work freely. You notice I set the box up right next to the truck because this thing will roll freely. So I can just roll over there, grab what I need, roll back over to my working area. So it's got these steps. You walk up here, boom, now I'm up over the top of the motor. What we're gonna do right now is we're gonna start taking, you can see they've got all this wire harness looming. All this is actually bolted to the top of the intake, both over here and over here as well. We've got some brackets and some things. We're gonna have to pull this off of the fuel rail over here. What I'm really gonna aim to do is pull the fuel rail off with the intake, because if you look down here, let's see if I can get a good shot of the injectors. This here's your injector, this red thing, and it actually goes down into the intake itself. And typically what that means and indicates is that the intake itself can be pulled without removing the fuel rail. The fuel rail can come out with it. So same thing with the throttle body. From what I see right now, you really don't have to pull the throttle body off. It's not going to get caught or hang up on anything. It's not on top of the motor like some of the other cars are from say Ford or Chevy. Even Nissan's got some throttle bodies that are up on top of the intake. So yeah, you've got these heater hoses here. These heater hoses go back into your firewall back here. Typically, in my experience, you want to be real careful when dealing with these heater hoses. They are under constant heat from the coolant running through them and from the motor itself. So this rubber does tend to get real brittle and dry and crack and everything. So you really want to exercise as much caution as you can while trying to get these hoses off. Try to keep like metal pliers and stuff away from it. Try and work them off by hand. Like I said, high heat that these are constantly under typically causes them to be brittle and easily damaged when you're trying to remove them. So it's something to watch out for. So I'm going to go ahead and start taking some of this stuff off of the top of the intake. And I'm going to get all these wire loomings off of the fuel rail itself. And then I'll come right back to y'all and show what it looks like. Alright, so I got one side done. After doing it, I decided that I wanted to touch on the driver's side specifically. You have to take just about everything loose on this harness. They've got this looming in here with very little slack. Even by taking these off and things like that, it's still very tight down in here. So what I ended up having to do, pulled the coils off, just take the plug loose from the coil. Even back here, you can see that one. This one back here is still in. I didn't have to take this one out, but the front three definitely. This is your Pcv valve here. This actually generates vacuum on your motor, and when this goes bad, that's when gaskets tend to get too much pressure behind them and it blows out gaskets. So you want to make sure that, you know, if you're in here, you might want to go ahead and replace the Pcv valve. Pretty inexpensive, and like I said, it's a pretty crucial part to keeping the life of your seals to their expected length, not cutting them short. So with everything taken off, special note here in the front, right behind the timing cover, in this hole here, you have these grounds. You want to make sure that you take those loose. Don't just go pulling on this, because you could break one of these wires in here in the looming, and you know, with a bad ground, you're just going to get all kinds of voltage problems. So that's something to make a note of. The throttle body was unplugged here. Also, the looming runs through this keeper here. Go ahead and take that out of there. And then also this one here, it's on the front of the cover. And then there's another one up underneath here. This is it here. And it came out of this right here, this hole. You want to take that loose, because what you're going to want to be able to do is just basically grab this and slide it up over the timing chain cover. See, it normally sits about here, down in that keeper, and with all of that loose, you can kind of nice and easy work it around the side. And now it's up out of your way, at least enough to where you can get down in here. You see these bolts, That is one of them right there. You can see my shadow pointing to it down in there. That one is underneath the... Just follow the shadow, guys. It's that bolt right there on the very bottom. So those are the bolts we're trying to get to. You can see on this side I have not taken any of this off, so you can see how it would be kind of difficult to get down in there to those bolts. So just wanted to touch base and note everything that had to be taken off of here. Your purge solenoid for your evap system, that had to be removed. You just kind of tuck the ground and the hose for it. This is the other hose here. Runs to your evap box behind the car. See, that hose is actually cracked. That right there could end up ending to evap leaks. Get an evap code, and it's generally these little bitty cracks like that that'll create a small leak. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and do this side and get back with y'all. Alright guys, we're back on the passenger side now. You can see I've gone ahead and I've unplugged all the injectors. And also this right here, I'm not sure what this is. Could be a knock sensor, could be something else, I don't know. Got some junk down in here, I know that. Alright. Yeah, I got all this unplugged from the fuel rail. Had to come up here and unplug the coolant temperature sensor. Got all these hoses and everything off. Basically, same thing. You want to have enough slack in this harness to be able to move it. You can see it's completely away from the intake. I've loosened these bolts up, so the intake is actually loose. Before you go ripping this thing out of here, you really want to make sure that you've got everything off of it. It looks like we've got some stuff back here attached to the back. I'm probably going to have to unplug all of that. It's not going to come out while it's still attached to the harness. This is from the other side in the back. You know, you can see that it's got an actuator right there. Probably exhaust actuator or something. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come back here. We're gonna unplug these. There's one. It's real simple how these come off of here. They're just depression clips. That motherfucker doesn't want to come off of here. Guys, I realize I have a vulgar mouth. Okay, I'm a mechanic. I'm not a customer service rep, so I might have to get some pliers back here, actually. Alright. This is something you can do here. Take some pliers, kind of help you press down on the clip. No guarantee it's gonna work, but you know, worth a shot. But yeah, let me go ahead and get that off of there. Continue getting that. So the rest of the stuff off here, I'm gonna have to uncouple these fuel lines. Probably going to do a little research on those, figure out how they come off of here. And yeah, once I get those off, I'll get back with you. Okay, so the way this fuel line comes off of here is it's got this plastic, orange plastic. This thing is actually snapped down. You kind of pull it up to reveal these blue clips here, or these blue buttons, and once you reveal the blue buttons, you press down on them, both sides like that. Typically if you push in fuel lines, push the buttons and then pull out, they come off a lot easier. Just wanted to touch on that real quick so that you guys don't see that and kind of freak out. You see how it snaps down into place once you get it back on there. And then if we take a look here, it's got these pieces right here you kind of pull away and push up. You can see that it snaps back out. Alright, intake is out. I figured out you got to be real careful before you come out of here. It's got this 10mm bolt right here, and this thing goes right into here and into the back of the intake. So you got to make sure you get that loose, otherwise this whole thing's going to want to try and come out. Also, on this side, another 10mm bolt sits right down in here. I kept trying to pull the intake out, but I couldn't get it to clear this. I didn't know what was going on. Once you take out this bolt here and this bolt over here, it actually allows this thing to kind of push back. See, the whole harness move now. And that's really the kind of play you want in your harness, so that you can move parts around it whenever you're getting it, whether it's intake or valve covers, whatever. Anytime you break something off of your car, you know, you want to have slack in your harness, both outward like this and forward and back like this. It's going to allow you to basically work to get the clearance that you're going to need. Also, if you have one of these trucks, these things are known to go out. There are videos on YouTube that you can watch that will help you get these out of here. But like I said, what I've pulled all of that off for is actually to get to this water pipe up underneath here. You can see it's that red right there, that's actually leaking. If you look up over here, that's what all that red is. It's pretty much a science experiment going on right now. So we're going to replace the gasket in that water pipe, clean off these mating surfaces here, so that whenever we go back on it with a new gasket, we make sure that we've got a good seat. It's absolutely imperative that you have a good seat. Doesn't look like the knock sensors are in danger of getting wet or shorted out, so don't really have to mess with those too much. But yeah, there's the intake. That's what the motor looks like with it off. Also, this is called your intake air pump. So whenever you have somebody saying that you've got a bad intake air pump, I'm doing a little part location for you. That's what that's called, the air intake pump. Basically helps pump air through your intake, so that it's not just running off a natural aspiration. Come down here. This is the intake here. This is where that screw goes into the back here. You see your bolt holes. The four corners on this thing are actually going to be studs. So a stud comes up through here, stud comes up through here, and then the rest of these right here going down the line are all going to be bolts. You can get an extension with like a skinny wall, 10mm socket. Go down in here and bust those loose. Like I said, there's there's studs up here as well, and over there. So once you get everything clear of it, it's pretty much just a straightforward up and out. What I did is I took the bolts all the way out so that I made sure they weren't going to hang up on anything while I was coming out with it. You don't want to take any of this stuff loose back here. This is an actual vacuum pump right here, and it controls it's got runners inside this intake, and those runners actually help control airflow a little bit more with the mass airflow sensor and the intake air pump. So, but yeah, that's the intake out of there. One more time, that's what you're going to be looking at on the motor side. Cleaning all this up. Don't use a wire wheel or anything like that, just a razor blade. Do a light scraping, get all of this stuff off of there. It's pretty nasty. Can't get it to foot. There it goes. Anyway, but yeah, That's how you get the intake off of a Toyota Tundra 2007. Real, you know, if you got after it, busted ass on it, probably get the intake off of there in just under an hour. Go ahead and get whatever it is you need replaced, and probably go back on there within an hour or two. Just can't be stopping a whole lot. You got to make sure you stick with it, stay on it, and take your time. You know, really focus on everything that needs to come out. You don't want to break any lines or anything, or make more work for yourself. So couldn't find a video on YouTube for the actual intake removal to get to this, even though there's a bunch of videos on how to replace this. There was none on how to remove the intake itself. So this video is designed specifically to show you how to get the intake out of there. Going back in there is pretty much the reverse order. So like I said, just take your time, pay attention to what you're doing, make notes if you have to. Be safe, and always keep wrenching.